Hello and welcome to my brief presentation on handling errors with exceptions. I've assembled a few examples here in my web page. This is by no means comprehensive. My general idea here is just to give you a preliminary sense of some of the things that you can do with exceptions. Point of exceptions, it's a handy way to handle these bizarre errors that can crop up in JavaScript, to deal with the problem that we have where it's not always easy to find out where we went wrong with errors in JavaScript. It's not like HTML or CSS where you can kind of just see on your web page where you went wrong. Exceptions are an excellent way to handle this. I will start by showing you a very basic example. So here we have your garden variety form, and I just enter in a number here and submit. I'm getting an error message. Int area is not defined, so we will just go and look at the source. And here we have my script here, and I've done sort of the standard thing with the function. I've declared a couple of variables pointing to what's in the form. Here I've got a try catch block. In the try, I enter some code in here, and basically it's the try catch's job to analyze the code, to take a look at it, and if it's recognizable to the machine as something that works, it's executed. If there's a problem within that try block with anything that's in there, it will throw an exception to the catch block, and it will push an error message, as you can see right here, to the variable that I create here, which is pointing to the div. And that's basically what's happened here. Is, as you can see, this is a very simple example. Here I've got a variable here called int area. Of course, if you look up here, it's not int area, it's entry. So this is just a very simple example to show how exceptions are good for even just handling the most basic, just even little typos. It's the kind of thing where if you don't put it in, it might not run, you won't really know what's happening. That's kind of the purpose of something like that. Moving on, we also have a validating with exceptions example. Form validation. It's an excellent application, I find, for running try catch blocks. Okay, so we go here, and anyway, we have here just again a simple try catch block. Here the block will throw a different exception depending on what kind of input you're dealing with here. There's really, because the input here, obviously there's nothing to really show because there's nothing here that throws any exceptions. However, we'll go here, it's empty, not a number, etc., etc. So that's another example of how exceptions can be, very helpful, because you can have a situation where you could have any number of errors. What do you do, right? This makes it very clear. One entry in a form, it may seem a bit excessive to do this. Really, when you have a series of inputs to deal with, this kind of operation can be very handy. It's one of the things I love about exceptions since I've learned about them. Also, there's something called a try catch finally block. I'll just show it to you real quick. And what it does here is, no matter what is run in the try catch block, it's pretty much the same as my last example, but I've also got this finally. So regardless of what the outcome of this is, it will execute whatever code is in your finally block. So it's just a little extra feature of exceptions. Also, I'm just going to take a minute and talk about custom exceptions. So here we'll just enter in something just to make something happen here. You see an alert pop up. And going to the source again, we have here a try catch block. Now it's within a function, as you can probably notice, and these functions up at the top. You've got sort of master functions here, and here what I'm doing is that if the input doesn't jive in a certain way, if it's not a number, it will throw an instance of this exception class. And if that's the case, not a number, not a positive number, empty variable, etc., etc. This is just one of the main things you can do with exceptions. And I personally am a big fan of this, because I can see that when we start getting the PHP territory, excuse me, it's going to become even more important, right? So I'm just going to now take several minutes and talk about PHP. I haven't started a PHP course, as I'm sure most of the people watching this video, well, if you're in the JavaScript class, then you almost certainly have not started it. So I've just made a couple of quick examples just to show you, some of the things that PHP exceptions have in common, in some of the ways that they may slightly differ. As Mazir's mentioned to us before, and I've seen this in the bit that I've been researching this, obviously the language of PHP has much in common with JavaScript. Obviously, it's a server-side language, so the issues that you're dealing with are different. You want to have like content control. Anyway, this is a simple exception here, and in the case here, I pass a number here that's guaranteed to trigger this exception of less than 0. It throws this number. Now this is just basically your raw PHP error message. It's a little scary. It has a basic content, but it has stuff that you wouldn't necessarily want an end user to see, like file paths. This is just my computer. We're looking at it, of course, but in a server situation, you would probably need to control and prevent situations like that from happening. So, hence another example, basically an extension of the last idea we were working on. I have to pull this up in text editor, as you probably know already, or you may know already, that you can't really just look at the source through the browser with PHP because it conceals it from the end user. So anyway, there we are. Basically the same kind of scenario, it's just arranged slightly differently. As you can see over here, we've still got this function, and then we test this outside. So basically the testing of that's done in the try block. Same thing, everything does what it's supposed to do. The code that's inside that will execute and done. It'll accept this. It'll accept this number. However, we already know from this it's not going to. It's going to throw this exception, and that does it here. Basically, it just pushes it. It just pushes a message right here. So that's a very basic kind of nuts and bolts PHP exception. Now we also have an example here. I generated an example of a custom exception, and what I've done here, it's a similar logic to the JavaScript. I'll just get this page lined up for us here, just so you can see what we came up with. This is the end message we come up with, and this is the code that I made for that. So same basic thinking, except here I'm just basically taking the pre-existing exception class that already exists in PHP, and I'm just extending it with my own class, my exception. Basically, it's just instantiating that and extending it. So what the upshot of that is, it's got all of the features, the bells and whistles, the methods and properties of the native exception class, plus this added function here, the thing I cleverly called my mistake. So in there, this is my error message, which you can pretty much see up there. Points to the line where the problem is, if there is a problem, and the element that's basically triggering it. Okay, so that is here. I've initialized it to something that's bound to break it, as you can recognize right away. That doesn't follow the format of your standard email address, so you can pretty much guarantee that's going to break it. And there, try block figures out that it's after running this, it's going to figure out this is false, obviously, throws that, and so basically what's happened is that it's gone through the try block, it's not accepted, therefore it goes to the catch block, exits there. So those are 3 little examples each of exceptions in JavaScript and PHP. Of course, as I said at the beginning of this talk, this is by no means comprehensive. I highly recommend looking into w3schools.com, their PHP tutorial. I know I certainly am, because I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of stuff that I'm going to need to know for the next semester when I start this course. And of course, there's php.net, sort of granddaddy. They've got all the documentation, everything pretty much you possibly want to or need to know on PHP. Anyhow, thank you for listening, and I hope that this was helpful and informative to you. Have a great day.